I think I could just reuse the Air Force and the Army slides, and we could spend our time discussing the bureaucratic, organizational, structural nuances and differences, because essentially we are all trying to do the same thing. You know, we're trying to equip the future force with advanced capability, and I always find it remarkable in the Pentagon, we couldn't do it more differently if we were trying to set up a risk table and try to cover the gamut of risk opportunities and risk mitigation. So I'm going to speak about our discovery and invention portfolio, which for ONR is all of our basic research for the Department of the Navy. And again, this is where we're just slightly different than the other organizations. We hold all 6-1 for the Navy at ONR, and it's also about half of our applied research funding, the $6.2. About half of that shows up in our discovery and invention portfolio. I think when you get to create your own taxonomy and your own language, it's helpful to cover what you're actually doing. Right? You can do whatever you want. And it seems to have worked so far. So every now and then we all reinvent ourselves and what we're calling ourselves. We change the ground rules. Makes it tough for the universities to figure out where we are. So over the last 8 years, we've actually held to a Department of the Navy S&T strategy. You can go to our website, onr.navy.mil. You can download the latest version of that strategy. And it covers the 6-1 through 6-3. But in that, you'll find how we do business, how we organize ourselves, and what we're interested in. And so you can see, you know, we're really a 6-1 through 6-3 organization. We are the intramural and extramural sponsor of all S&T within the Department of the Navy. There's always a little asterisk when anybody says something like that. The Naval Reactors Program at NAVSEA has their own funding. They are their own technical and programmatic authority. Their job to keep the genie in the bottle. They do well. They do everything that is nuclear power for the Department of the Navy. We really don't have much of a role there. But we're like the other organizations, you know, fixated on providing technology and opportunity for the warfighter of today, the warfighter of tomorrow, and the warfighter after that. And so while we get very excited about thinking about the opportunities that we're enabling 20 years from now, we're also interested in doing the, you know, what are we doing for the Navy of today? Unlike ARO, because we have this, in AFOSR, we have a 6-1 through 6-3 mission, we are very much in the fight of today with our program officers. About 130 program officers, $2.4 billion budget at ONR, which includes our SBIR portfolio that we manage for the Department of the Navy, our 6-1, 6-2, 6-3. We have the largest 6-1 portfolio of the three services. It's just sort of grown that way. It's about 45% of our budget in between our 6-1 and our early 6-2. But I think right now we have, there's roughly $600 million in 6-1 funding at ONR between the single investigator research portfolio and the university research initiative. Congress has been exceedingly gracious over the last several years. This last year they gave us an additional $73 million, 53 of that in single investigator, 20 million of that in the university research line. Here's my obligatory org chart. And as you can see here, we have a Chief of Naval Research. Recently came in, Rear Admiral Matthias Winter, Matt Winter. He's a naval aviator out of the old A6 community. When the A6s went away, he became an acquisition professional, so he was PEO unmanned down at Pax River. He ran China Lake, and now he's come to be the Chief of Naval Research. We have a Vice Chief of Naval Research. That's a Brigadier General, currently Kevin Calais. Is our Vice Chief of Naval Research. You see the Naval Research Lab up there. They report to the Chief of Naval Research, not to ONR. Unlike the other services, ONR is an Echelon 1 command. And so our boss reports directly to the Secretary of the Navy by law. And this makes a big difference when you look at the ARL org chart, and they're buried below RDECOM, buried below the Army Materiel Command, where you have their programmatic authority over and some assistant secretary. The Chief of Naval Research is dual-hatted. He is his own resource sponsor. So we hold technical and programmatic authority at ONR. And again, it's just org chart-wise, it's just a slightly different way of doing businesses. Confuses OSD to no end, which is probably a good thing these days. But we're all very happy with our own little worlds and the way we're doing business. I would say we work very closely with ARO, AFOSR, and now I understand why I got an email last night from Bill commenting on my slides. NSA apparently as well. Small joke, right? Can't resist. But I think what for your PIs, this is a key point. We're a community, and we all know each other. And the first thing we're going to do when we get a white paper or an email saying that you're working for some other, you're talking to somebody at ARO, we probably already know who that is, and we're sure going to check. And so when you're proposing research that you're already getting funded for at ARO, and it doesn't happen, but there's always, I'm going to go do this new thing. It's important to establish credibility by saying who you're working with, because we're going to figure it out. And I think, in the old days, people would try to hide where the money was coming from. I think the motto today ought to be, very proud, I'm receiving funding from the Army to look at this piece. I'd really like to get some Navy dollars to work at this other interesting piece. Those program officers within those organizations are all talking to each other, and you can build a check very effectively by acknowledging where the other money's coming from. And that's, I think, a new paradigm probably over the last decade. I'm astonished at the number of people that still try the old way. And you can see we're organized by those physical domains or the cyber domain. We have our codes there that manage those various domains. And then you have two directors, one that manages the research, one that manages our technology portfolio. That's the late 6.2 and the 6.3 and a little bit of 6.4 that we swing to go ahead and provide that oversight across all the domains. And obviously I'm in the Office of Research, and I'm really focused on those education programs. Talk a little bit about STEM at the end, our discovery and invention, and then I hold a small pot of $6.3 to go after things that can really move the meter today for the warfighter based on our D&I. I'll camp on this slide for a minute. These are the people in my office with their email addresses, pictures of them, and you can see their role within the organization. For this group, it's probably the two most important people there are Dr. Joan Cleveland. She's our Director for Discovery and Invention, so she's responsible for this D&I portfolio. And then Dr. Ellen Livingston manages the University Research Initiative PE. Because we collaborate with OSD and the other services and a bunch of other agencies on that URI PE, which is where the Murray and Derps and all, of course, are, I have someone that manages just that PE to work those linkages across the other services. So she runs NESF for OSD and manages our piece of the other portfolios. You also have down there on the bottom, Dr. Michael Simpson is our Education and Workforce Director, and Mr. Anthony Smith recently came in to manage our HBCU MI portfolio. Like the Air Force and the Army, if they drink beer or wine in a foreign country, we probably have an office there. And we do very well with our international outreach, our international engagement. We're co-located to the best we can. We've recently moved into Sao Paulo. We're looking very hard at an office in India and an office in China. The challenges there are the international diplomacy piece, not our desire to do it. Here's our obligatory 4-box chart. This is for all of our 6.1 through 6.3. Your researchers would mostly fit within that D&I portfolio. Here's the first of a few money charts, and you can see where we spend our funds. I actually racked out, I was kind of curious who the top universities were. That's really not a surprise. I used to have on this list the bottom 5 as well, but I took that off. But it's pretty obvious when you go to Web of Science and you search for ONR as an organization that funds, and you look at where the papers are being published, you can tell where we spend money. And you can see there the ratios, basically 60% and 25% of our 6.1 and 6.2 respectively is going out to universities and nonprofits. These ratios have held true since about 2002, when we jacked up the amount of funding that we provided to industry as part of one of our transition programs, the Future Naval Capabilities, where you're required to have a signed agreement with a upstream customer that you're going to transition the technology to, and you're going out on contract to get industry involved. But even with that, there's quite a bit of academic work being done. So there's 2 pieces on this slide. The first is, who should you talk to? And like the other gentleman said from the Army Research Office, you know, it is possible to send in a full proposal and be selected. It's infinitely more likely that you would engage in a dialogue with a program officer, submit a white paper, be invited to submit a full proposal, and then be considered. The biggest challenge for an organization like ONR, which is behind our security wire, our NMCI, for operational security reasons, we're not allowed to put pictures of our people, email addresses, phone numbers. That engenders 2 things. One, it engenders a bad behavior by the program officer potentially, where out of sight, out of mind, leave me alone. And the other is, it's very hard for the PIs to figure out who they should talk to. So I spent a lot of time trying to explain to people that on our website, on the front page of our website, is a little locator at the top that says Technology Locator. It's probably for your PI the most important button on our website. And it also happens to be on our grants and contracts page as well, but it's on every page, Technology Locator. And you click on that, and up will pop a long list of technologies. And if you click on your favorite technology, it'll pop up the program officer that's responsible for that technology at ONR. Now, I'm told that for OPSEC reasons, we can't put the phone number, the email, and the name, but you can have the email address and the name. I thought that was good enough, given that nobody answers a phone anymore. And so encourage your PIs to engage in a brief, very thoughtful email discussion. Brevity in all things, especially email. And the goal of that is to find out where that program officer will be, what meetings he'll be attending, if any. We're allowed to attend this event because I drove myself. I'm going to pay for my parking, and I'm here. And I didn't request permission, which was a pretty bold move, actually. I'm just here. But you know, you want to talk to that PO and understand. And I would say that the good ones will immediately get back, and the thoughtful ones will engage in a dialogue. Personally, and well, professionally, I'm exceedingly interested to know the names and the email addresses of program officers that aren't responsive. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I know what to do. And I've been on a kind of a mission to turn us into a more graceful organization. And I have to be very careful, but I mean, I think we're exceedingly gracious in the main. Every now and then I look at an email thread and it just makes my head hurt. So I'm trying to get out of those headaches. The start for all of this is that conversation with the program officer. I wanted to put up some stats. I've hired recently a former AAAS fellow to assist me on numerology, if you will. And it was kind of interesting. So we get roughly 6,000 inquiries, white papers. We get 3,000 formal proposals. We'll fund about 1,000 of those, 900 last year. We'll see this year. But I was pretty pleased because we're about a third, somewhere there, 30%. And those are the numbers that NSF and NIH publish. So I thought, all right, you know, we're right in the zone of everybody else. I will tell you that we just closed our Young Investigator program, and you can say, wow, why is Navy so late? Lawyers, relative to the Air Force. Can't live with them, can't live without them. And, but we received over 400 proposals for YIP this year. I hope to fund 24. That's the hardest program there is. Now what I don't know, because we don't do a white paper stage with YIP, it's a full proposal, comes in the door. We still encourage people to find their program officer that they've been working with or have been communicating with, because somebody's got to evaluate that proposal against a bunch of others. And you know, we're humans, we're people, we're looking for the credible science built on trust, credible science by what you read, credentials. And so I think that many people apply for a YIP because they're young. And I think that that's something where they should be receiving other dollars ahead of time, at least as I look at who we end up ultimately selecting. That's a tough, it's harder to get a YIP than a P case. And then where we spend money, I say, is always, you know, forget looking at where the input dollars go. We all know the size of the grants. We all know how many grants based on the size of the budget. But this is where this is where our publications are coming out. And I didn't put the numbers here, but I think we sponsored, since about 2009, which is when Web of Science's data is reasonably accurate, you know, I think that embodies about 25,000 papers from ONR over that period, plus or minus. What was fascinating to me was the number of papers that we've sponsored with co-authors from industry. And this was, I built this slide for OSD. We get beaten up a lot. You know, your budget's not going to anything we care about. I'm like, well, really, look at all the industry partners who are at those academic institutions working with our researchers and have co-located and are writing a paper and publishing, you know, in open source. You know, this is peer-reviewed journals. You know, you got 132 papers that have a Boeing author and a university author. We're paying for the university author. Boeing has come to the table with their own money. And so I look at this as our 6-1 transition to industry opportunity, where you would never find this if you asked, how many research programs are you funding with a university and Boeing in 6-1? And I'm sure the answer is 0. But they're coming to the table with their own dollars. You could do the same study with NASA, Air Force, you know, and I don't even want to pretend who's doing it better or not. I just offer that you have successfully brought in a lot of industrial partners, and big named industrial partners, onto your campuses, and I think that's a really good thing for the country. Impact the scientific community, just a citation counts from some papers that I thought were interesting across our portfolio. You know, some of these do very well. Because Web of Science only tracks organizational funding reliably back to about 2009, it's hard to look at those really seminal papers like Jim Murday would have published in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that have, you know, tens of thousands of citations against them. I would have to go find his name and his paper to do that easily. So money-wise, we look just like the other services. We do university research initiative programs. These are the DURUPs, the MURIs, are really our flagship programs. Our enterprise research, because each program officer has a funding line that they're managing, and you're always looking for new opportunities, we have within the building these episodic challenges that are an internal challenge. So the basic research challenge pits the program officers against each other to come up with the most new and interesting, compelling piece of research they want to go sponsor. From that, they would go put out a broad agency announcement and go work that for 3 years with a goal of either retiring it or bringing it into their mainline program. It's easy to come up with new ideas. It's very hard to figure out what research to walk away from so you can go fund those new ideas. No one wants to talk about their termination program. They want to talk about their new things they're doing. This is our ILIR, independent research. This is we've put about $15 million into our warfare centers. These are the dollars that they use to do research, train students, and then hopefully we can hire them. We have a very large STEM program. The president, part of his bold reorganization in 2013, kind of all the cockroaches froze. We're moving again. We're focused on the 9th through 12th grade, high school, college, graduate school, very focused on putting students onto the bases, into our labs to do work. We have a summer faculty program like the other services. That is a phenomenal opportunity for the new professor who has no summer money, who has no money, is trying to build credibility. You should require them to apply for that. Every new faculty, if they don't have funding, should be required to apply for summer faculty fellowship. Not just because it has money, but because it has contacts. You're going to go to Dayton, DC, Adelphi, someplace, and you're going to meet researchers who know the ecosystem of that particular service and its S&T organizations. You know, industry pays thousands and thousands of dollars for that kind of access. Here's somebody who's going to get paid to do it. There's my email address. Send me your complaints, your ideas. If you're looking for help meeting somebody within the organization, at least virtually, but by email, that's my job. Happy to do it. Thank you.